Hello, Internet. My name is Fwipp, also known as Ryan. Anyway, as I know all of you are not aware, I've been taking voice lessons every Friday, so here I am. And I just wanted to talk about this observation I've been having. Now, voice lessons are great. I mean, I wouldn't miss one of them. And it's interesting because while I'm practicing hitting the notes and hitting it dead on, there's just this thing in my head which tells me I just am not comfortable practicing voice here at home around my family. And why is that? I haven't really thought about it before, but the thing is, I think it all comes down to the concept of tests. And tests have two sides. In school, the most common one is probably this, where you think it's this horrible precipice you've gotten to. You know, you've got to practice and make sure you know everything possible. There's this big fear of failure. And of course, there's that concept that if I practice voice at home, I'm not perfect yet. I don't want to let people hear me practicing because then they will get this impression about me. I'm not performing at 100%. You've got to start somewhere when you're learning something new, of course, but my issue is that I'm pretty sure they're going to end up judging me based on what they hear. And sometimes, like when you're trying to see what high notes you hit, of course it's going to sound awful at first. You can't be good without sounding awful first, right? But the thing is, there's a second concept to the test, which I think actually might help some people and that you might not actually think of. And that's just take the sentence for what it is, first of all. A test is a way to prove what you know. Think about that for a minute. It's a way to prove what you know. There's been times taking tests in school where I have just had to sit at my desk while I'm writing my exam, math, chemistry, biology, physics, whatever, English, and I've just had to smile to myself. You know, I was proud to be writing that test because I knew what I was doing. I mean, yes, you've got to rack your brain to get these physics diagrams and formulas out. But when you're doing your process and when you've got your answer, you can say you know this, and it feels good. There's a saying that one of my great professors, Andrew Titus, said. Sometimes when you're writing a paper, and particularly a very difficult paper, like not just an exam, like a thesis, like you've got to bang your head on the desk until it bleeds and then write in the blood. I'm a big fan of the method where you drive yourself a little bit insane while you're trying to write a paper, but then in the end it ends up being great. It might be hard, but that's how I operate, okay? One of my hardest tests, and I can tell you this right now, it was a 2,500 word paper, cultural anthropology. You needed 8 sources, and 4 of them had to be from the big library, and 4 of them had to be online. And the topic I chose was cannibalism. But like I said, it's a way to prove what you know. I didn't know a lot about cannibalism, but I did know how to show that I understood what the arguments were and the different forms of cannibalism and how to express what the texts were telling me so that I could have a concept that I didn't know anything about, research it, and then present it to somebody else. And it worked. It worked out pretty good, even though, whew, you know, I put myself through a fit trying to find all my sources and going crazy at how difficult this particular test was, especially since, you know, this was first year university and it was worth 30% of my mark. And trying to think, oh my gosh, a single paper is 30% of my mark. Like, there's a lot riding on this alone, but it ended up working out. Another story I've got is my most memorable exam would have to be first year university English class with Andrew Titus. Again, thing is, the exam itself was very open, as exams in English tend to be. So basically, we had all the texts that we'd looked at, for example, Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, and say, Beowulf. And then we'd have all these concepts to talk about with them. So you might end up writing about how those two texts have to do with the cycle of the hero, which is a great concept, you know. You draw a circle. The main character starts here, and he descends into the unknown, where all of his concepts are just thrown out the window, and he's got to deal with whatever life comes at him, and everything he thought he knew is gone, and he's got to relearn himself. And when he takes that trip back up out of the circle to get back to point A, he's a completely changed person, you know. Good, bad, whatever, he's someone different from when he started, and that is the cycle of the hero. Great, isn't it? But anyway, what I did in my text was I took The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe, and The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. And what I ended up doing was I wrote a paper about how the main character who tells the story in The Telltale Heart is just absolutely fixated about that one aspect of that person. For some reason, the heart is all that exists of this man. When you really think about it, I think that's a pretty fair argument. That no matter what you think about, the man that he worked for, like what enabled him to kill him is that it just his mind. He only thought about that heart the whole time. It was not about the person anymore. It was just about the heart. And in The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, it's a lot more subtle. But what I ended up doing was I kind of compared that logic with what's going on in this story. Now, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner is a very long tale about what happens to the guy. But when you really think about how it begins, there's a guy telling this story to another person who's got like a wedding engagement or something to go to. Like he's a guest. But he can't escape. He's got to stay there and listen to the whole story because the mariner has like some sort of freaky eye thing. Okay, like there's this one part of his body that just forces the other guy to be completely fixated on the story. He can't leave. It's subtle because the whole rest of the story is so interesting. You know, there's so many voices going on, but there are points during the Rime of the Ancient Mariner where you kind of see a scene and it goes back. It goes back to the mariner just telling the story to the wedding guest, and the guest wants to get away, but it's that eye. There's this evil eye thing going on where he cannot get away. So I compared that concept to the Telltale Heart with the concept of the heart. And the thing was that I want you guys to understand is that this exam was fun. It was a blast. I loved it. It's crazy because what I did was I didn't just write, a test. I came up with an original idea on the spot. I didn't even think of this when I sat down to do the exam. And it was like writing my own story for my exam. Okay, I was teaching myself something about it as much as I was trying to teach my professor because I knew he was going to read it afterwards. But the thing was, as I was writing it, the points, they just it wasn't like they wrote themselves because it was all in my head, but I had just known enough about the subject matter that I could just flow, and before I knew it, I had 6 pages. And yeah, happy ending, A plus, hooray. But the point is, it's not the marks, and that's the fault of the system, I think, the school system. It's not its fault per se, but it is a byproduct of the system that students end up thinking, okay, I gotta do this specifically to get marks, to get places in life. But you really have to sit down and ask yourself, are you really paying attention in school? Do you understand what's going on? And I don't mean just being able to rewrite a formula. Like, can you use it? Because one of the most important things in life that I've gotten out of an education is the ability to critically think about things. I mean, that doesn't sound like a big deal, but it is. Trust me. So paying attention is definitely the first step. But the next thing is really being self-aware about, are you getting it? And what can you do with it now that you've got it? Because tests are just a way to prove that you know what you know. You should feel proud when you do a test or exam. You should feel confident. Anyway, that's my little spiel on tests. Realizing that, I don't have to be perfect, at least at the start, does mean that perhaps I should actually think about practicing voice lessons more at home. It's going to be a hard concept, though. But hey, something else to work with. We're not perfect, but at least we know where we want to be going. That's kind of important. As Socrates said, the only thing I know is that I know nothing. So, at least I know that I'm not perfect yet, because I'm pretty sure being an arrogant jerk is a lot worse than just being faulty for having a bit of ignorance, because ignorance can be worked on, and trying to be a know-it-all hurts other people, probably. Thanks for watching this crazy vlog, and I hope you learned something. This is Fwipp, signing out. Keep it real, everybody.